Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for finding us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're also on Dash Radio on their Nothing But Net channel every single weeknight at 7 p.m. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel for all of our streams. At a big UFC stream the other night with our guy Jonathan Romlicon. We've got streams going all the time. We've also got 5 hour live shows that includes the Alex Dono Daily Show on all South Florida sports. Get your local sports talk every single day at 12 noon. Just got to go to the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also check out fivereasonsports.com. No paywall. We do not charge you for the great content we provide from all the camps. We've got someone at Summer League right now. We've got Brady Hawk writing on the Heat. We've got Jazz Santana at Canes camp. We've got everybody at Dolphins camp. So make sure you check out all of that content and also check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Our sponsors are local. We ask you to support them because that keeps us going. And also they're all big Miami sports fans. You already start with something in common. That includes our guy TJ over at CPT of South Florida. That's CPT of South Florida, which is where you want to go for your IT. I know that's a lot of initials, but follow me. CPT of South Florida has been providing small and medium businesses with the technology they need for decades. They specialize in cloud-hosted phone systems and managed IT. If you own a small or medium business, you're looking to save money on your monthly phone and internet costs, you got to give TJ a call right now. He's been helping South Florida businesses save thousands per month, and he can do the same for you. With a cloud phone system, you can work from anywhere on any device. For a free in-person consultation, you got to go to cpt-florida.com. That's cpt-florida.com. Or call TJ at 954-966-2766. That's 954-966-2766. You want the real special treatment? Call CJ and mention 5 Reasons. You'll get 25% off the cloud phone service, including free phones and the first 2 months of service free. It's a great promotion. So deal with an owner, not a sales rep. Give TJ at CPT a call. Again, 954-966-2766, or visit the website at cpt-florida.com. And now, tonight's episode.
Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Here's tonight's floor plan. I got Greg Sylvander back with me. You can follow me at Greg Sylvander on Twitter. Make sure you catch up with our recent episodes. We just did one on the tampering investigation. There's been a little bit more news since then. Ira Winderman of the Sun Sentinel, he was the first I saw to report this, that it's going to take about a couple of weeks, but that you would not anticipate the Heat losing Kyle Lowry. They could lose some money, maybe lose a draft pick, but we'll see how that situation plays out. But Greg and I covered that the other day. We're going to do an episode about Bam Adebayo going forward. We will do more on Kyle Lowry. We'll do more on Markieff Morris, more on PJ Tucker, more on Omer Yurtsevin, or I can't pronounce it, but anyway, it's the best I could do. Yeah, he's already taken some days off, Greg. They're already load managing him. They got to save him for the playoffs. He missed it. He missed a summer league game, but I'm sure we'll talk plenty about him. But today we're just going to talk about Jimmy Butler, and we're going to talk about the extension that we told you he was going to get. We told you not to panic. Don't worry about it. There was no strife between Jimmy and the organization. When I talked to people inside the organization, Greg, about Jimmy Butler, when there's reports of strife, they said, no, we just need more like him. They were always going to give him the full 4 years. It was never a question that they were going to do that. And so they did. And I know that some Heat fans are concerned about what the back end of that contract is going to look like. I polled it. Roughly 80% of the people I polled at 5 Reasons Sports said that at the end of the contract, Heat fans would be ecstatic with it or generally pleased with it. Only 20% said, little under 20% said that they would regret it. Again, $50 million in the last year of a deal when Jimmy's going to be 36 years old. So we thought we would look at this tonight, sort of see like a precedent for these kind of deals, how they typically play out, and ultimately whether it's going to prove to be a good deal. So I'm going to put you on the spot here, Greg. If I was to say to you, as we look at this deal 4 years from now, and we say the way that this played out, okay, What to you would qualify as success? Worth it?
Wow. You know what? Like, there's almost a part of me that some people are going to cringe when they hear this, but like, we've already had a finals trip, so we have to make sure that that stays in the ledger when we're doing this balance act of the highs and the lows of the Jimmy Butler tenure in Miami. I think that their success is consistently being a team that is in the mix to get to the finals. And as long as that is what is taking place year over year, I don't think that any Heat fan could feel bad about that. I mean, like, this is a situation where the franchise, when the core was Justice, Jay, Rich, Hassan, Dion, and JJ, like, it looked like you didn't have an anchor to attach yourself to. And now they have this player, a pillar, a player that's looked at in the league, especially with what he did against LeBron James in the finals, as a real top tier dude. So I like the fact that they've locked into him. And it's also like, it's part of the package deal, right? Like, you knew you were getting Jimmy, you knew that this was going to be an all-in proposition to win, and they're backing that up by giving him the money. And for him, I don't think it's going to necessarily mean that he's going to have to be like 22, 6-6 when he's 36 years old. I think that they're going to have to reinvent kind of how they use him. And as long as they're in contention, it is a successful run for me.
We're going to put this into some context. I agree with you. I think it's about contention. When the Heat have given out long contracts before, and remember, contracts used to be longer than this. The NBA used to give out at least to allow 7-year contracts. And we talked about the Juwan Howard situation on the last podcast. I mean, the Heat was prepared to give Juwan Howard and Alonzo Mourning 7-year deals. Now, the money now seems kind of small, because I think Zoe was like 7 for 106 or something. For some reason that number sticks in my head. And then a few years later, like Eddie Jones and Brian Grant were 7 for 86 or something along those lines. So these were longer deals than we're even talking about with Jimmy. Now, of course, Zoe was a lot younger than Jimmy is now when they gave him that deal. I think even Eddie was younger when they considerably. I think Eddie was like 27. He was entering his prime. You look at LeBron, Bosh, when they gave him those deals. Remember, those were 6-year deals with an opt-out after 4 years, which came back to burn the Heat. But it's what they had to do, because that's the way sign-in deals were structured at the time. And that's what LeBron and Bosh, particularly LeBron, wanted. And that was in exchange for the Heat also giving up 4 first-round picks, 2 to Toronto and 2 to Cleveland. So this stuff has changed a little bit. It is now assumed when you get yourself a max player, you're going to extend that max player. Okay. And so this is a cost of doing business kind of situation. It particularly is a cost of doing business situation when you consider the type of personality that Jimmy Butler is, that he's the absolute best guy to have on your team when things are good, and maybe the worst guy to have on your team when things are not good or he's not happy. You want to keep him happy. And this offseason, we talked about it, was going to be a lot about keeping him happy while maximizing Bam. Kyle Lowry is somebody who solved both situations, but also Bam got his money. He got it when he wanted it. He could have waited. Things might have looked a little different. Jimmy got his money, could have waited. He took it. I'm never going to have an issue with guys taking their money. But let's look at this in this context, Greg. If you look at a lot of stars around the NBA, I think things have changed. Like, Jimmy's 31 years old. That used to be perceived as sort of old in the NBA.
The tipping point,
It's a bit, but it's really not now. Now, I know LeBron is a freak, okay? But I remember having a conversation with LeBron. I did a big piece on him on the eve of his 30th birthday, a sit down in Cleveland. And I said, what are you going to be doing at 40? And he says, playing with my son. I said, playing with he said, on the court. Okay. I mean, that was always his goal, and he probably is going to be, okay, in some capacity. LeBron has changed the game there, but it's not just LeBron. You look at the Chris Paul contract, to me, is what changed the equation here. Chris Paul looked cooked 2 years ago in Houston, and just not, I don't know what's more impressive, Greg, taking that team in Phoenix to the finals in his first year, or what he did with OKC, making them extremely competitive the year before. There are just more guys, Greg, that are playing at a high level, 33, 34, 35. So before we get to Jimmy specifically, I think that changes the calculus here.
Agreed. And I think that is something that just holistically the basketball community, the older you get, the goalposts move, right? And like there's just a certain thing where as you age, there's a faction of NBA fans that start to like tune you out, and they want the next youngest, best, most athletic guy. And I think what you're seeing is teams are placing a premium on players that are getting these big contracts that extend into their late years. They all, maybe not in every example, because some teams are just forced to lock in guys because they got to keep talent around, which, I mean, that is something that I think we should consider, is that like it's good that you're keeping a max talent around. But these guys like Kyle Lowry, who's getting big money in the latter years of his career, Jimmy, Chris Paul, they impact winning in a way that I think teams realize that some of what they're going to bring is going to transcend whatever the box score shows as they age. And so that's just something where you talked about like Jimmy being the best player to have when things are going well and maybe the worst when it's not. Well, there's a couple of things that are good about that. One is that when things aren't going good around here, I feel like this is the type of organization that he'll be able to operate in that space in a healthier way than he did in other places. And this is the other part of it, is that if you know Jimmy wants to win and you need to make sure that he is on a path to contention, it does behoove the front office to continue to be aggressive and make root moves to sculpt the team around him. So I kind of like the idea of his window kind of nudging the Heat into continuing to contend and keeping their eye on that ball too.
He forces them towards their natural impulse, which their natural impulse is to go and not to wait. And he forces that. And we saw it this offseason where they made a series of moves, whether, and not giving away the future, but bringing in older guys, Morris, Tucker, Lowry, etc., whose window is now. Kyle Lowry is about the age where Jimmy's going to be at the end of his contract, and Kyle Lowry fits that same description. A player who was still playing at a high level, put up some of his best percentages last year, just didn't play as much, in part because Toronto kind of shut things down a little bit early. I don't think anybody thinks Kyle's lost it. I don't think people think necessarily that Jimmy will lose it. When we come back, though, we're going to get into Jimmy specifically and talk about kind of where he is at this point of his career, because there are misconceptions about Jimmy Butler's career that I've tried to address before. But we're going to get into it more specifically here. But before we do, I want to tell you about another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, and that's our friend Mark Brown. If you're young and single, you got to meet with Mark Brown. Make sure you got someone you trust making decisions in case you're unconscious, you're incapacitated. You want to know where your money's going to go, right? If you're young with a family, you need to meet so you can set up plans for your kids if anything unfortunate ever happens. Even if you're older, you don't have a family, you should have a say in where your estate goes. Mark can handle all of this estate planning for you. He's got a small firm. It allows him to be focused on his clients and remain always available. I can also tell you he handles real estate stuff as well. Handled my title for me on my condo, handled it on my house. Mark is great to go to on this stuff. And like many of our sponsors, a huge Miami sports fan. He's based right there in North Lauderdale, right off of Cypress Creek and Andrews in that area. And again, they got a title company in-house, so they can handle property assets or anything else along those lines. They handle much more at that firm as well. Here's where you go. MarkBrownPA.com. That's MARC BrownPA.com. 954-566-5678. That's again, MARC BrownPA.com. 954-566-5678. Mention 5 Reasons. Take care of your title for under $300. So make sure that you mention us to him. He will know exactly what you're talking about. All right, let's get to it now. Jimmy Butler. I have made this point before, but it's worth bringing up again now. There is a misconception that Jimmy Butler was run into the ground by Tom Thibodeau. Okay. Now, in terms of when Jimmy was available, it's fair to say that. Okay. Because when you look at a couple of his seasons here, he played high per minute, per game minute seasons. I mean, he averaged, if you go in here I'm looking at the, I got to call it all up here again. But basically,
I mean, I know some of those years in Chicago, you're talking 39 minutes a game, 37 minutes a game, 37 minutes a game. So he was playing, 4 or 5 minutes more than he's playing a game in Miami.
Exactly. So you go 2013, 14 through basically 2017, 18, basically through his tenure in Minnesota. Okay. Like you mentioned, 39, 37, 37. He even led the league in minutes one year. But here's the part that nobody really mentions. His first year, And again, the Heat played the Bulls in the playoffs that year. Jimmy was a rookie. He didn't play much the first year. Okay. He played 42 games, only averaged 9 minutes. Second year, he played 82 games. He played all 82. It's the first time he's even come close. Only time he's ever really come close to that, with exception of one other season. But he only averaged 26 minutes a game. And then in the years that he had all those minutes, he didn't play every game. Okay. 13-14, he played 67 games. That's missing 15. 14-15, he missed 17 games. 15-16, he missed 15 games, but not with the kind of lingering, debilitating injuries necessarily. He just missed time. Okay. 16-17, he played 76 games at 37 minutes a game. He played a lot. Okay. But then he was traded to Minnesota. He missed some time in Minnesota that year. That was the year he was an MVP candidate for a little while. Only played 59 games. He missed 23 games. And then the next year between Minnesota and Philadelphia, he played 65 games, okay, averaging 34 minutes a game. So he missed 17 that year. Miami, he had the bubble season, which was compressed, and he missed time. Some of it was not for injuries. Some was because he was dealing with a couple of personal situations that year. And then he missed time for COVID this year and for some other things. And so he only played 52 games out of the 72. So he's missed a lot of games. And because of that, his career minutes are not what people think they are. I'm just going to give you, again, I've mentioned the LeBron thing before, but I mean, LeBron is, again, freak of nature, has played more than anybody else ever, right? But Jimmy's only played 21,000 minutes in the regular season, and he's played 3,000 minutes in the playoffs. That's 24,000 minutes, okay? I'm just going to give you a comparison to a guy who also missed a lot of time, his buddy, Dwayne Wade, okay? Dwayne, over the course of his career, and again, it went longer, 36,000 in the regular season. Jimmy's only at 20, okay? And playoffs, 7,000, which is basically double what Jimmy's played. And again, they're only about 5 years apart from where Dwayne ended up retiring. So Dwayne played, even with all the time Dwayne missed, all the load management, the knee issues, he played a lot more minutes, deeper playoff runs typically, right? Especially during the Big Three era. And also, even when he was being managed by Spoelstra, he didn't miss that much time. People think off the surface, people would just say Dwayne missed a lot more time over his career than Jimmy. He didn't. And so the reason I'm bringing that up is because this feeling that Jimmy's going to break down. I mean, maybe, but Jimmy and Dwayne are similar in some ways, except I think Jimmy has an advantage. Dwayne did rely on his athleticism early in his career. He evolved. He developed the old man game. He became one of the smartest players to ever play that position. But Jimmy's never had that athletic ability, right?
Exactly.
And hard work doesn't go away like that. That is Jimmy. Jimmy has described that as his best skill. I think Jimmy's going to age fine with or without. I know people will mention the Dwayne mid-range, but with or without the Dwayne mid-range, I think Jimmy's going to be okay in terms of his aging process.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I think that are important. One is like, we're going to get to watch how a great player like Jimmy Butler adjusts and evolves his game. We watched Dwayne do it, and it's going to be some semblance of what Dwayne had to figure out as you get older and picking your spots. And you'll have nights where you see, like, remember how many times we said vintage Dwayne? Imagine how many times we're going to say,
I'm just going to stop you. Because I was in the locker room during that.
He
hated that.
I know.
I did it once, and I
never again, right?
I never did it again. He hated vintage Wade more than he hated without Wade, which was remember that was a hashtag for a while.
Gosh,
or Wade like washed. Remember that one? He hated vintage Wade. I never understood it because to me it was a compliment for him. I think he embraced it a little bit more towards the end.
Yeah, because it was like he didn't have it anymore. But like, no, back to Jimmy. I mean, like, I'm looking at playoff minutes. He's played 3,000 basically playoff minutes, and almost 1,000 of those or so, as I'm doing quick math in my head, have been in Miami. So we've witnessed like 33% of his playoff minutes. So I think you bring up a really good point in that, like, what I think is the most taxing element for players year over year, at least personally. And obviously I'm not a player, so I don't know this for sure. Is like you make a long playoff run, you come back, you play an 82 game season and another long playoff run. And that is something that you do over and over and over again. And maybe that'll be what Jimmy now has to manage going forward, but it's not something he's had to manage in the beginning stages of his career. So I think that that's just, to your point, it's an advantage to Miami. I think it's overblown and not something that they're going to have to necessarily worry about.
All right. I got one more question for you before we close. I'm going to say it on the other side of the break here. Before we do, want to tell you about MyBookie. You got to go to mybookie.ag. Use that code 5, F-I-V-E. That's the code 5 over at mybookie.ag. It's where you get that great live betting. You can bet on just about anything. You want to bet MLB, you can do that now. You can bet on Summer League. You can bet on just about anything and also get in on the futures. I am telling you to go over with the Dolphins. I've been telling you. I think Tua is a borderline Pro Bowl candidate this year. Nobody's believed me. So go to mybookie.ag. Use that code 5. Use the code 5. Again, they got a great live betting platform. You get your money quickly. Bet on just about anything. You can hedge things during games and all that stuff. Again, sports are more fun, particularly this time of year where we don't have NBA basketball to talk about. Sports are more fun when you're actually gambling on them. So use your parlays. Do whatever it is you want over at mybookie.ag. Use that code FIVE. All right, I got a question for you, and then we'll close. Now, we talk about Dwayne Wade. We know the injuries he had to battle through. Jimmy's had some injuries. I mean, he's had the wrist, he's had the shoulder, he's had, the knee. I mean, there's been stuff. His ankles, it seems like he's got issues with those. But again, nothing debilitating, nothing that derailed him the way that has derailed him, the way that the knees derailed Dwayne at times. If I was to tell you right now that in the last year of his deal, when he's making $50 million, that Jimmy Butler puts up the numbers that Dwayne did at that age, because Jimmy would be roughly the same age then that Dwayne was in the Last Dance season. Okay. And that season, Dwayne played 72 games. He only started 2 of them, as people remember. Was reasonably efficient. He shot 43% from the field. He got a little 3 happy that year, shooting 33% from 3. Hope Jimmy doesn't get 3 happy, because that's not what you want from him. But he averaged 15 points in a season that kind of went nowhere. It was really about Dwayne, but 15 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, almost a steal and half a block a game, again, while shooting 43% from the field and playing 26 minutes. If that's where Jimmy is in that last year, making $50 million, how are Heat fans going to feel about it?
I'm sure they're going to feel some type of way, but I actually think it's probably pretty darn close to what his stat line will be when we get there. I don't think he's going to be averaging much more than that. And the key will be that they will have had to have an ascension from Bam Adebayo, and by that time they will have had to have a complete reload of this thing so that Jimmy can average what Dwayne averaged in that last year. And instead of having a farewell game in Brooklyn that was, not followed by a playoff run, they would actually be in a different position where, like, yes, Jimmy Butler is in the twilight of his career, but he's doing so on a contending team. But there will be question marks, right? Like how do you build a contending team if a player like Jimmy Butler, averaging what Dwayne did in his last year, 52 million, how do you make that work? And you know what, like that, from his perspective, that's not necessarily his problem, but it will incentivize them to have guys in the pipeline that are young, that are cost controlled, playing better than their contract values to make up for the fact that a guy like Jimmy he will not produce to the $52 million mark. And again, this ties back to, and this is where I'll finish, this was a package deal. Like, you gave Jimmy this money to give Kyle the money and to extend Bam and to bring in all these guys, and there'll be more guys to come. So for me, like, this is much more a player that will be tied to team success, maybe more than most of the superstars that have came through Miami in the past.
The other thing about Jimmy, we know that Dwayne kind of stopped defending about 3 or 4 years before the end of his career. I don't see Jimmy doing that.
No, it may be what he hangs his hat on, actually, and goes the completely opposite.
Yeah. I mean, Dwayne obviously during his prime was one of the best, 2-guard defenders, particularly off the ball in league history. But Jimmy's a different kind of defender and sort of a different kind of physicality there. he's going to be a role player. I mean, the question is, can he be a high enough level role player at 50 something million to make people happy? I will say that's going to be a hell of an expiring contract. Team needs to get under the cap. Trading Jimmy in the last year of his deal, I just hope for his sake it's not to Minnesota or Sacramento, because I don't think that'll go particularly well. But we'll see. Well, we'll see if Anthony Edwards is a star. But actually, Anthony Edwards will probably be in Miami by then, based on the way that things are going, playing with Zion. Anyway, Greg, we appreciate it. Thank you. We'll be back with more episodes later in the week. Check out our sponsors, cpt-florida.com for your IT, markbrownpa.com for all your estate planning, and also if you need help with your real estate title or anything else along those lines, and also mybookie.ag. Bang that code 5 FIV.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.